Hey guys, welcome back to the Made Men podcast. This is your host David Sloan and my co-host Adam Carroll. How are we, Adam?
Not too bad now, Dave. What's happening? Take two.
Take two. The mic cut off on the first one,
Yeah,
um,
that's a
so
bummer.
we're going again.
Yeah. As I was saying before, we did get cut off. It's nice though that we got people to who are supporting the podcast. You know what I mean? I didn't think the amount of friends that texted me saying, fair fucks for doing this. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. It's just really not really, yeah, kind of like inspirational. Like, do you know what I mean? That you know, they wouldn't want to do it or be too scared to do it, but admire us for doing it. You know what I mean? I really like that the amount of thanks I got. You kind of realize kind of friends you have too, that they are very supportive. You know what I mean? I'm kind of lucky to have them.
No, I agree. I was genuinely shocked. I thought I'd get about 7 or 8 views, and three of
We.
them are from me. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, we'd get 7 or 8 views. That would be me rechecking the view count. That'll be you
Yeah,
rechecking the view
absolutely,
count.
absolutely.
And yeah, I didn't even think I didn't even think my own girlfriend would want to listen to it. Like, why would she want to hear more of me for another hour and
Yeah.
a half ranting about whatever? Especially with you then making it even 10 times worse. So no,
Am I making it 10 times worse?
because you agree with
Oh,
me and you riding me on. So
yeah,
then I keep going, and then
yeah,
um,
it's true.
no. So I am glad that we are getting a bit of support, like,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm
because
glad.
it shows that we're doing something that people actually kind of like they'd want to listen to. Like, it's not
Yeah,
we're not just
enjoy.
talking to ourselves.
And it's good
Um,
as well because it kind of gets you know people thinking as well of things like I know if it wasn't for this podcast I wouldn't be thinking about, well, I would think about it but I wouldn't say much to anyone, and I feel like by doing this there now with you and that you're expressing things you're thinking. It makes other people listening think more. That's what a lot, like why I really love podcasts, is because you'd watch someone like Joe Rogan or whatever, and you'd be learning, you'd be thinking yourself, and like, yeah, he's actually right, or no, I disagree with that. But now people, yeah, at home can listen to more kind of, not really, yeah, like-minded or
more
similar,
relatable stuff.
relatable. Yes, yes, similar age, and you're growing up through the same times and that, so they will definitely be able to relate, yeah, to a lot of things we'd have to say, I suppose, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we're kind of really the first ones that I know of anyway that are kind of in this little niche pocket of young Irish guys that are just chatting about normal stuff that everyone around us might think about, but we're kind of trying to get people to think about it more maybe, and see the
Yeah,
see other sides to it, or see other arguments to it, and get people just thinking really,
yeah,
because like it's fine to know of a topic. Like, obviously we're going to be talking about topics that everyone kind of would know about, like, let's say like the last one now, school and stuff, and like we didn't even go fully deep into that, um and we will be in the future definitely. But um like people might know that, oh, the school or the education system or whatever isn't great, but it's like, why isn't it great? What are the reasons? And like, see what people
yeah,
actually in the system think, and who have experienced it recently, not some politician telling us that it's great and they were in school back in the 80s or the 70s or the 60s, like,
yeah,
um
yeah, no.
yeah.
Yeah, just yeah, as you're saying there, like a, a buddy of mine there who I worked with last year ago, year and a half ago, yeah, something like that anyway. Who I stay in contact with a bit. I told him to have a listen to, because he's actually going back to doing arts, and he wants to become a teacher in secondary. And he agreed with a lot of what we were saying, and just if that's our view and he believes that as well, and you know we must be saying something right. You know what I mean? He thought it was a very good podcast, because he sees the issues even like in college learning things, he finds what we're saying is quite true in a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
glad that.
he might be a better teacher then because of it, because he actually thinks about what
Yeah.
people are saying or whatever, and then he's reflecting on it more. So
Hmm.
like imagine if there's 10,000 teachers listening to, like, then that's a big difference then or whatever. But obviously one
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah. What a
um
time, Jesus.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what did we say we'd kind of cover today?
We were kind of speaking on the mindset of a typical Irish person, the like around our age, I suppose.
The young
Kind of
lad, like.
yeah, the similarities, kind of a lot of um I suppose guys and girls have
Mm,
grown up from, I suppose, the age around 12 till about now, I suppose. Would you say that be around a good,
I'd
or even
say it
before?
even I'd say it even hits around college time. Like I mean now like 22, 23 kind of age. I'd say after that it would taper off. And I think college it definitely does. Things get a little bit different and a bit messy because people really try kind of new groups and new friends and new everything, and it all, or it's a way to find yourself, as some people like to say. But yeah, so I think college it definitely gets a bit more complicated, and it says less so, but 100% from like first year straight in all the way up to sixth year, and then like kind of
Yeah,
first year college, second year college.
yeah, just because I thought 12 or 13, because that's the the age you're going into secondary, depending what year you're born. Like, you would have been 12. Were you 12 going into secondary? Yeah.
I think
And
so,
I
yeah.
was just 13, like that.
Yeah, I was 12, yeah.
Something like that anyway. But see, for me, and I felt it was very, I was in the same boat as a lot of people, was that you go in there and you just want to fit in. Like, that's the first thing, you know what I mean? Like, you
Do you
want to
remember do
you
you
want to
remember thinking that?
I do 100%. I can tell you right now that going into school, yeah, I wanted good grades and everything, but the first thing I really cared about was just I wanted to fit in. I don't want to be fucking, I want to be in a group, and that to secure me, going through till sixth year. Um, I just didn't,
So do you
in like.
think you were in sixth class or like just after sixth class and you were like looking at, in a month's time I'm going into first year, and you were worrying about that you need to be fitting in?
Absolutely, yeah. Because going into secondary, I didn't know. Going into the secondary school I went to,
Mm.
I didn't
We went
know
to.
many people. We went to. Um, I didn't know many people. Like, I didn't know you or anything. And
Mm.
once I got there, then you just try and stick with any kind of group at all, to just and then kind of like to like fit in more. You'd kind of do the same kind of things as them. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it starts, because um when you're in like when you're like under the age of 12 and that, I feel um you're kind of a bit more yourself. Like, you don't give a shit what people are thinking of you, or um you know when I was growing up as well, I thought um I could do what I wanted, and I didn't have a care in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Could go around. The only thing I really care, you'd care about, is like playing fucking tag at lunch or whatever, and not having a bother in the world. Like, the only thing you really cared about was who's on at next lunch. But see the way from there to, as you go into first year, and that, I feel teachers and students would have a great effect on you that way, and maybe like even parents and that,
Your
to
mind is very moldable at that age.
yeah, absolutely, that's fucking bang on there. That's what I was kind of getting at there, is that you start change into what's ideal for this situation.
Yeah.
You go into first year, I was glad I was into sport and that, soccer, and that couldn't get you a bit further to getting, picking out friends and that. But if I think back on first year and that, you can see fellas who weren't into sport, it could have been a lot harder, like because you know who goes into first year and you know doesn't play a sport, or doesn't
Especially in an all boys school.
yeah, it's a huge it's a popular thing to be interested in sport
Mhm.
of any kind, because the sporty kind of guys stick together and that. But as a a fella
But
going in
I
there,
think saying sport of any kind is even unfair because I think if you've someone who does rowing, they're not going to be accepted um, for compared
it
to someone who does football or Gaelic or football or hurling, rugby. I'd say
rugby,
those are the top ones.
yeah,
Yeah, and then basketball as well is kind of well
it's
definitely a
kind of there
lot
nowadays. Yeah,
is there. Um, but I think if you're doing like rowing or sailing, I think you're kind of a bit of an outcast a little bit
even
in
scouts
to
and
the
that.
sports people.
Like,
Yeah, scouts and to the sports kind of people anyway.
yeah, yeah. When I do say sport, that's what I was thinking of as well. I was thinking soccer, Gaelic football, hurling, and
Mm.
rugby. They'd be the main. And I suppose for the girls, it would be them and maybe hockey. You know what I mean? I don't. I wouldn't know many lads who play them hockey. You
Hockey
know,
in
at nursery.
the
That would.
posh girl schools. That's
No, but
that's what they love to play.
yeah. But from that, I felt I just wanted to, follow along in that kind of crowd. Yeah, follow the crowd.
Mm.
Into first year and that, and because that did make life easier from first to sixth year if you kind of all did the same thing. You know what I mean? You didn't have there wasn't much for me anyway. From first to sixth year, I there was no individuality. I just kind of copied along. Even like once I got to about third year, I even started like listening to music that people listen to, like a lot of rap and stuff. And I appreciate rap and stuff, but I just don't even like it. If I listen to it now, my fucking eyes will roll. But you know, it's good to like self-reflect in that, and it's crazy to think of how similar I was to every other guy. But it's fair enough in another sense. Like I completely understand why people want to just fit in.
No, I 100% understand it. I just think there would be a line then obviously where like obviously if everybody is gonna like target this group of people or bully or whatever and it's like oh I'm gonna fit in so that I don't get bullied as well here and you just follow that kind of crowd, then I think that that's where the line kind of stops where like you shouldn't be doing that and like your morals should kind of kick in. But I do think that it is inevitable really for any kid to feel like he's going to need to fit in at that age, jumping into an environment
Yeah,
that he's hasn't been in before. I don't think I was as clued in as you. I was a lot more naive. Um, I
yeah.
had
I
I
was
had
quite
my
naive, but yeah, yeah,
I had my own interests and hobbies and whatever, and that didn't change. I didn't think I needed to hide them or anything. I didn't think I needed to change them. Um,
yeah,
and I didn't think I needed to fit in. I didn't even it didn't even come to my head about fitting in or anything. And then I came in and then I realized, oh, I'm a bit of an
oh
outcast
fuck
here.
yeah, yeah,
And that's then when it started to switch across like about yeah, first year, second year kind of a tone.
you know where I think that is though is because my brother was in the school before me, and I was
Mm,
just kind of listening to him to he was like, you're going to go in there now, and now Adam, you're going to have to fucking just find a group there now, play a sport if you want to, but the best thing now is just to get stuck in. And as you are the oldest
yeah.
child and I'm the youngest
Yeah.
child in my family, that's the difference. You were the
I was
first
testing the
one to
waters, yeah.
exactly bingo, yeah. And I felt
And I got
yeah,
swallowed up.
yeah. And you know you look back and I do remember you getting a hard time in first year and that, and I as a young fella who knew no one in the school anyway, you can't fucking I didn't have the fucking courage to say anything at the time. And you know and at the time as well, you mightn't even think that person's taking it too badly, or they might be actually thinking it was a laugh themselves as well. But no, I don't think it would happen nowadays, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like going into college or whatever, I wouldn't see it happening now. But definitely, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah,
No, I wouldn't expect anyone at 12 years of age, 13 years of age who's like so um easily scared to be like if not fitting in or an outcast. Like I don't expect anyone like that to go against the grain and stand up for what they believe in or whatever, or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
their guts telling them. Like that just doesn't happen. Um,
yeah,
that's a bit like idealistic for everyone to be so like morally just and just like follow their hearts and do whatever is right, you know. And I think there's a lot more of that thinking when you go into like college, and
absolutely.
you've got people that they'll go to the ends of the earth just to make everything fair and stick up for the underdog
Yeah,
or whatever, which we're seeing
yeah,
is going a little bit too far now. But with the odd left and all them, like just, you know, but they're a conversation for another day. I think they're quite extreme.
that's for another day.
But yeah, no, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying. So wait, yeah, you were saying, when do you think it started to kind of switch where you were like, "Oh, I don't really need to fit in,"
Yeah.
or
Definitely, definitely sixth year. That's when I kind of changed a
fully?
lot. Like, not fully changed. I fully changed in the last couple of months, to be honest with you, Dave. Ever since kind of like the first lockdown there, I kind of you've more time to think about things, and I took I took the time out in the lockdown to, like, because you're doing nothing else, to think about these things. And I to think about, I was like a bit of a coward growing up, you know what I mean, in secondary school. I didn't want to, it was as if I didn't want to be myself around others, you know what I mean. I was kind of just,
Why do you think that is?
because if you were to, if you like, and I think it's happening a lot now. Like, I feel like a lot of kids are going into school and stuff and feeling the same way, but you know you just kind of cover up of who you are to, suit others, and then eventually that nearly just becomes a part of you as you grow older, and that's
Yeah, like you
that's what
don't want
happens.
any kind of confrontation or anything to kind of happen, or you don't really want
Absolutely not.
anyone to say something to you, or like have people looking at you weird, or people talking about you behind your
No,
back, so you just go along with the flow.
that's it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's literally it in a nutshell. There, you just kind of, you, especially for me, I was fairly quiet. Like, I stuck to myself a lot, and I with my own kind of things I enjoyed and stuff. I didn't really say much about, but if the lads are on about like sport or whatever, you could just chat away about sport or movies or whatever. But definitely, like, there's a different side to you then when you go home, and that, um, like, like my music taste now and the movie taste I have is completely different to what 90% of people who watch,
Yeah.
nowadays, and that, um in saying that, that's completely fine as well, to
Sorry, a little bit of an interruption there with Eli.
not
But
you're
yeah,
grand.
what were you saying?
Just just that when uh you know you've two different selves. Well, for me anyway, from um from school, secondary school, you'd have one side that you show in school and then another when you go home. uh
Yeah.
yeah, that's for
And
me,
and
that's how
like,
it was anyway.
why do you think now that has kind of, you've like reached this point where you're like, you know what? Like why did that kind of click?
It's
Like what went in your head where you're like, oh, like that sudden kind of realization?
Yeah, it's a sense of maturity, I suppose. You get older, you kind of get a bit wiser. Like, I know I'm only fucking 19, but you do get wiser and you think more. And when I think about, if someone was to say something to me in secondary, I would think, I'd fucking dwell on it. I'd be pissed off that someone says something. You'd nearly become insecure about it. But now, someone called me a prick or whatever, oh, that fella's a bell end, I think of it this way: you go to bed, you wake up, and you do the same thing every day. Like, you're not you shouldn't take it on board. Like, it's you who takes it on board when someone says something to you, especially if it's someone who's not close, who wouldn't be a close friend of yours, or not even a friend of yours, just kind of an acquaintance, to say something like that. Even if it's about you and you didn't hear it from them specifically saying it to your face, but if you heard something, you kind of go, right, that's grand. Yeah, that's how I think of it nowadays. I don't really care of an opinion of
Mm.
someone else if it's negative. I kind of like to, when you hear positive, you're like, yeah, that I love that, but once it comes to negative, you kind of, I don't really acknowledge it, if someone was to say something now.
Yeah, like I think like a lot of people might have this attitude where it's like, oh, I don't care what anyone says. And I think that that's a bit that's wrong, because I think you should definitely care what people think, but it's who that you choose that you care
Yes,
about.
that's what I'm saying.
Um,
Like from an acquaintance
yeah,
or
exactly.
compared to
So
support.
you like, why would you care about this person who says something to you that you don't care about actually
About,
them as a
yeah, you
person?
couldn't give it.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like if they fell off the face of the earth, you'd probably be like, ah, all right.
You just gotta
But
go
yeah,
along with your day. Yeah.
yeah, but like obviously then if your best friend or your wife or your girlfriend or your mom is going to say something, you might take that with a little bit more.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. You obviously acknowledge it's from the people you care about. That's
yeah, exactly.
that's where you kind of reevaluate, I suppose, what you're doing
Yeah.
and whatever.
So any like you should be like a wall to everybody else, and if someone says something that like you don't care about, it just bounces off you. But then with people that you care about, you kind of be like,
Yeah,
okay, and you reflect on it a little bit more, or you'll just even like care about what they say, you know? Um,
because it is from someone that cares about you. They clearly mean it in a positive way. It's more like constructive criticism if they said something to you that you consider negative.
yeah, yeah,
You kind
especially if they're not like just snapping in the moment and saying something that they don't really mean or whatever, because obviously that's a bit different. But yeah, if someone's going to say something that you're going to take slightly in a negative way or whatever, and it's someone that you care about, then obviously that's for a reason. So you're going to sit back and you're going to kind of evaluate why they're saying that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's it's such a like broad aspect of like, see, negative things like said to you. It's such a complicated thing. When it comes from different people, it means something different. But
Yeah,
you um, if I if I think back on times when if I did have something negative to say about someone, you know what? Sometimes it nearly be of jealousy, and I think that's a huge thing.
jealousy
Someone
is
would say
huge.
something, like uh, if someone was, going out of the norm, like trying to do something for themselves, and in a positive way. Like when I see people trying to start like a business now or something, you think fuck it, fair fucks to them. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have the fucking brain power to do something like that, but on another scale, if I was to look at things like, oh, that'll never go well, but that's more kind of the jealousy coming out of me then, if I was to say that. And sometimes I could say something in a moment and I wouldn't fully mean it,
No, yeah,
and
I
that
agree.
happens.
Like, yeah, like I most of the time when people say something negative and they like they've no idea about the actual thing that they're talking about. Like if I like with my business now, right? Um, if any one of your friends now, or one of like my friends, or anyone in that kind of a like anyone from school or from
Yeah,
college,
that kind
like
of realm. Yeah,
yeah, that kind of a like if they say something like, "Oh, that's a stupid idea. That's never going to work." Um, firstly, do they have a business? Secondly, do they have a business in the same field that I'm in? Uh, it X to both of those usually. Then thirdly, it's like do I actually value their opinion? Then and it's like you don't, because
yeah,
they don't actually know what they're on about. Um,
yeah,
so like if you're talking to someone who's in that field, who's done something and who's further along that line than you, and they're gonna usually that their criticism would be actually constructive, and it wouldn't just be a flat out, oh, that will never work, because they'd want to help someone out and say, look, listen, if you do this a little bit like this and you change this instead, or um,
yeah.
that's
Constructive
very
criticism. Yeah,
different, and you will never find constructive criticism from people who don't know what they're talking about, because how can they be constructive if they don't know what they're talking about. Um, you're frozen.
Hello.
You're oh, you're back.
Oh, yeah.
You're back.
What,
Did you hear all that?
uh, no, could you go back to just where I said constructive criticism? Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So people, like, you'll never get constructive criticism from people that don't know what they're talking about, because how can they be constructive?
yeah. See, you can look at it a couple of ways, but yeah, I for the majority, yeah, I agree.
Like,
With
obviously
that.
there's like little differences where people can be like, oh, um like if they know what they're on about, they can say, oh, I can change that a little, you could change that a
Yeah,
little bit or do that. But I'm saying, if people are going to say like, oh, that's never going to work, um how are they going to know that it's never like, that's such a broad thing. Like, I
absolutely.
just think all these comments are just like pure out of like, oh, I'd do that better or whatever. And it's like, then why aren't you doing it better?
Yeah,
And it's just pure jealousy that someone else is doing something that they're they might either want to do and they're too scared to, or something that they don't understand, and they
yeah.
feel that they're not like good enough because they don't understand whatever that is.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get, I would agree with that. I think it's a scary thing when you try and break the mold and do something different. And from us having this podcast, I have people telling me that they've started their own business and that. And you know what? You can only just admire them now. I feel if I was to start this in secondary school, I wouldn't be able to. If you'd told me to do this back in third year, even though that's when I started listening to podcasts, I wouldn't be able to do it as much as I'd
Mm,
love to. And I wanted to make this podcast for a long time, and I wanted to make a podcast from whether it was you with anyone. Like, I just love the idea of it. But if I was back in my fucking school days, it would be a lot tougher, because some might say something and it might just
and
fucking
then you're in
yeah.
an environment where that's just lingering
Yeah,
all day,
it's
and then
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah, yeah. There's no kind of escape from it. Yeah, but yeah, since since I'm gone into college and stuff, and that people have said to me that if they wanted to start in something, or either have started or wanting to start a business, you can only admire someone for saying that. I-
Mm.
it's them showing their own bit of individuality, and adding to their own little society or whatever.
And it's just trying something, like why, like there's nothing wrong with trying something and not working, and you just learn why it didn't work, or you learn something. Like, a big thing, like I started a drop shipping store 2 years ago, I would say. No, maybe 3 years ago. About two years ago. um a drop shipping store on Shopify, just purely out of interest on how the platform works, how e-commerce works with selling things online. Um, where I didn't need the product in my house and ship it out. Someone else is doing all that for me. I'm just trying to do the marketing, um, the design of the website, and all of that stuff, and learning how that works. Um, a complete failure. I sold about two or three t-shirts, and like, if I looked at it at the start and was like, there's how many hundred thousands of drop shipping stores doing t-shirts are there? Why is mine going to succeed? And then I'm in that mindset and I'm like, oh, don't try that. Then I would have never had that failure. But because of doing it and just trying to learn it, I learned about marketing and how all that works, social media marketing specifically, like branding, how websites work, how the Shopify platform works, how e-commerce in general works, um, even what is dropshipping and what are the bad things about dropshipping, what are the good things about dropshipping. Um,
Yeah,
and like the psychology around consumerism, what colors work best,
yeah,
to catch your eye, catch your attention, what text looks good, all of these details. I wouldn't have learned any of them if I didn't just bite the bullet and try it. So, like, you don't need to do something all the time in order for you to get that goal. That's like the number one goal. Like you don't need to have a business that's $1 billion business, and it doesn't need to be your first business that you ever try.
Yeah.
You don't need to have your first job out of college earning 150 grand a year. Um, but there's so much other pluses and benefits from the ones that on the surface look like they didn't work out or they were failures, that you need to take those failures and you learn from them and you use those benefits that you got out of it onto your next one, and you keep going,
Yeah.
and eventually
Yeah.
something will click.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because just by you saying that stuff there to me, I'm hearing. I remember when you started making the business and talking me through what you were doing. That everything you're saying about the last thing that wasn't a success. You're adding in, you're adding into your new company, Cambrine, and that's that just shows nothing ventured, nothing gained, and I'm a real advocate of that. Like I think you know if something doesn't work out, you're still going to learn something from it. You're still going to take something away from it. And
Yeah,
that's just proving my
100%.
point there. Yeah.
Yeah. um yeah, and I don't understand why like how people are just so like afraid to just like do
you see,
something.
you see, sometimes it mightn't be that people are afraid, but they mightn't, you know, they mightn't have the ideas behind it, or they mightn't um, even want to do. But there's definitely a sense of, uh, you know, uh, fear behind it as well.
But like
For me,
I'm not even on about just like not everyone needs to start their business. Not everyone needs to like run a company or run a store or have a podcast, have a YouTube channel, whatever. But like everyone has their own opinion, and there's people that are actually scared to just give their opinion on different
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
And that's pure out of just fear of not being accepted and your opinion being rejected by others. And I don't understand why people can't just accept that like not everyone is going to have the same opinion, but once you
Yeah,
voice it you learn from other people and your opinion might change or whatever.
yeah, exactly that. I'm I'm honestly just I'm not sure. It's just I suppose it's through the way we're brought up. Maybe when you're younger, you kind of you feel like you can nearly fucking take on the world when you're a smallie, but as you get older, it's like see it's not even like a sense of reality or a reality check. You should everyone should have they do have the they're entitled to their own opinion in that, but as you say, no, not everyone gives it, and it's kind of hard to understand why not. But at the same time, I was kind of in that boat myself before, of not being able to express what I'm thinking at that moment in time, and I don't even know why I was like that. Maybe I was insecure or whatever, but I don't know. It's something that's it's quite interesting to look in depth. I feel if we had someone on there who I was thinking of to speak about the psychology behind why that is, would be a very
Mm,
good episode. I feel that would be a I feel people could take away from having guests on to speak about these kind of things. People especially who are in that area of psychology, or whether that's we're on about a business there and why people don't do businesses, or you know I feel if we had more kind of diversity to the channel, I think that's we
mm.
have a lot planned anyway for the
Yeah,
future.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
all in
do,
front of
do
us.
you think, you probably know my answer to this, but do you think that Ireland as like a culture and as a society are a lot more um, scared to accept like differences and people being a bit different and people saying something that's not going along with the flow, or trying new things or being a bit out of the box kind of?
See, that's hard for me to answer simply because I've never lived somewhere else like you have.
Yeah,
I know
that's
your
fair,
answer would
that's
be
fair.
yes, and I know by listening to you, I would say yes. But because I don't have any experience of living outside of this country,
Yeah,
I can't honestly tell you. I only know from what I grew up with.
yeah, like I think like I was the same as you. Like when I was like before I moved to Canada, I was like, well, like how am I supposed to know that other people um think a bit different or whatever, like, or more acceptant, or like will accept more different people or different ideas, and they're a lot more kind of progressive or whatever. You only kind of see it, I think, on, like, I did anyway as a kid, had this kind of like picture as America as like amazing, because like so many people can do whatever they want, and like businesses like are born there out of nothing, and um people take risks, and it's a lot more of um a society that accepts risk takers, I would say.
Yeah,
um and I think that was kind of in my head a little bit. And then obviously you grow up and you don't think about it. And then when I moved to Canada, I was like, yeah, that's crazy. Um, like over there now, obviously you're going to have your groups that are the like the people that kind of follow the crowd or whatever, but it's a lot smaller. It's way smaller. Like everyone might have their little bit of, might have their cliques and stuff, but there isn't like this massive kind of a group that are all the same, and they kind of are what people feel they need to follow, if that makes sense.
yeah. No,
Like
yeah,
you have your little groups. You might have your hockey players, ice hockey now because they're Canadian. um you might have your American football players. You might have your um I don't know, people like
lacrosse.
your computer lacrosse. Oh my God. You might have your computer nerds, and you might have your artists, and then you might have your kind of sciencey people or whatever. But like nobody is kind of feels they need to follow this
Yeah,
trend or this way of acting. There's no haircuts that everyone has now, besides the hockey boys. They've got the hockey flow,
yeah,
this like that. But like everyone just mocks them. Sure, um, the hockey boys are like our rugby players. Um, they just get a roasting. Um,
yeah.
and
I suppose.
I think, yeah, I don't know why that is. I don't know why like one society are a lot more
Accepting. Yeah,
accepting of anything, like whatever, and people just have this kind of attitude like, yeah, he's like, he like, they might think, oh, that guy's a little bit off or he's a little bit weird, but like they don't care. They don't care enough to say anything, or they don't care enough to do anything about it. And then those people, they might see like, oh, that's the cool kid, but they don't even care enough to try and be that. um Whereas when you look at like secondary school here,
yeah.
it's like you'll have a kid who's like, oh, is that what everyone wants to be, or is that what everyone is trying to be, is that what everyone's acting like, and then they'll just like strive to change themselves so that they fit in.
It could be the fact that they're the classes are a lot smaller. Well, in what we've had and stuff, classes were a lot smaller. People, the population is way smaller as well here compared to Canada. Like there's like like I feel like because
Yeah,
there's so much more people out there.
definitely
There's
plays a factor.
I think that's a huge part of it. That's maybe the key factor behind it. Is the size, and that people all people can't keep up with the trends or keep up with what's happening in his life or her life or whatever. You know,
Yeah, I don't know, I wouldn't hide behind the population as like the main
I think
reason.
it is a big factor though. Because it's easy. It's easier to point a finger at someone out of 100 compared to out of 1,000.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah,
um
yeah. That's
it
that.
is a
Like
fair
that's
point,
what.
but I do still think that I don't know, there's a little bit more of a, I think Irish people are known to be a bit more negative with things, and are like begrudgers for a lot of stuff. Um, and they're the first people to say that you'll fail, and they're the first people to come out and be like, that won't work or whatever. Um, and it's this kind of it's a small, tight knit community
Minded.
that Ireland has, and where everyone is like, they're comfortable in their small kind of bubble, and if anybody's gonna break that bubble or go outside that bubble, everyone's gonna be the first one to say, "Oh, look at that dope. Um, what's he doing?"
Yeah.
And I think
Um.
it's not the same in a lot of other places.
You see, you say that, but at the same time, I would have thought people would have thought of me as, oh, look, this knobhead there starting a podcast. But people are quite respectful of it, and they think it's a great idea. And maybe it's the age as well that you grew up, 13 till was it, or 12 to 15 in secondary here,
Mm.
and as you went over there, what were you, 16 over there? Yeah, on
Yeah, I turned 16 over there, turned 17 over there, then
the,
came back.
that, but that could have been it as well. That when you're younger and stuff, you kind, you know, um, I feel that people who are in Ireland and that, and in, as you're saying with the small groups, it's it's more to do with kind of. I'm after losing my track there, Dave.
No, it's all right.
It like what I'm trying to say is that people who are in the smaller groups maybe are more jealous. Yeah, they're more jealous of the ones who are kind of sticking their neck out there because maybe they wouldn't have been able to do it. You know,
Mm,
whenever I try something new, my dad would be like, "What the fuck are you trying that for? What do you, what's all that about?"
mm.
But when I and like that's just like I feel my dad has a very kind of that mentality, kind of more cynical. With my mom, it's more like go for it, fucking have a bash off it and see what happens. And I think it's just kind of what you grow up in, I suppose.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I think my family have definitely impacted my way of looking at it compared to like other people's families. Like, I think so. I think like it's easy to be a big fish in a small pond,
yeah,
and I think people get comfortable being a big fish in a small pond, which is what I think the Irish kind of mindset is. It's like the goal is to be the big fish but in a small pond, and the small pond is being Ireland, and they'll kind of just or Cork or Dublin or whatever, and they'll feel they've made it, or they're successful, or they're the cool guy or whatever, when they've kind of reached that kind of feeling that they're the big guy in the small pond. But I think people forget that there's other huge ponds out there, um,
yeah,
and like you need to be. I grew up being told like there's other ponds out there. You know what I mean? Like there are other huge ponds out there that, like, just because you might be big in Cork or Cove or then Ireland, or like there's levels going all the way up. And
yeah,
I think you see it a lot, and I'm seeing it more as well with business here, more than I would have years ago. Like you'd see a lot of people here, and I'm seeing it where they might have a successful business, right?
yeah,
In Cork or in Ireland, and they'll be getting praise and they'll be getting this, and they act like that. Then they act like they're the successful ones. They've made it or whatever, and they're the cool guys. And like you should listen to me, and you should. I know what I'm talking about. And they'll strut around, and they might buy their BMW, or they might buy their Mercedes, um, and they'll have a nice suit or whatever. Um, and they're just a big fish in a small pond. And I think that you shouldn't aim for that. I think if you should aim to be a big fish in the biggest pond in the world, and obviously you mightn't hit that, but you might get further than what you will if you think like,
yeah,
oh, let's be a big fish in a small pond. Um, like I'm seeing it where, like, my dad was in a comfortable job here, like a good one, and he would have been considered like, obviously not the biggest fish or whatever, but he'd be climbing the ladder here, in Ireland.
yeah,
And he was like, you know what, just bite the bullet and go for a bigger job, with a newer, more like global company, a tech company. and like he's grown 10 times more, and his eyes have been opened into a whole nother universe, and he's like developed in so many different ways, all because of going to try and get into that big pond and learn from other people and learn from people who are in a bigger position or whatever. And I think not a lot of people are afraid to kind of make that jump or make that decision.
Yeah. I think you saying that there now, it shows that, it's it's being taught to you from, your parents or
Yeah,
even
100%.
and yeah, that's why I think, I feel quite lucky to have, my mom and that, because she's always been very supportive. I want to get into, online trading and stuff, with the stocks and shares, and she's just been like, yeah, fucking go for it. If you have money there, might as well put it aside, your money for trading, and keep, your money in the bank or whatever. And it's just, she comes out with these, great ways of, support, really. And but in saying that as well, there is like, I I think when you're coming into our age now, you're definitely starting to do your own thing. I think a lot of people are anyway. They're definitely starting to change a lot, and I'm noticing a lot in
Mm,
people
yeah,
who I've grown up with in school to now, like, who are my closest friends. I'm looking at them going, wow, you're really doing something here for yourself, and
yeah.
fair fucks to you, And it is. I do think it's a culture thing, but it's definitely changing in
No,
the
I
right way.
agree. I agree. I think
Um,
it's 100% changing, and I wanted to get onto that because I think, yeah,
yeah.
I sound very
Yeah,
negative there, giving out.
yeah.
Um,
I was trying to stay quiet.
no,
Yeah,
I know I sound very negative and stuff, but I think it does need to be touched on because there are still people that are like that they feel like they're holding themselves back, or they're just not gonna go for it. And I think we are definitely seeing us on the right path to getting to like a country like, I don't know, Canada or America, where people are like more positive and more like, yeah, you know what, just like go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Um, we're definitely on the right path, and as you said, people that are starting to um
get out
yeah,
of their shell.
exactly,
Yeah, break the
yeah,
mold. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And I think that's brilliant, and I think you definitely see it more as well with like social media. People are starting to be a little bit more um comfortable in being different or being a little like fashion. You can see it a lot. People are really getting into like their own kind of fashion or their own kind of styles or whatever, um compared to like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think. See, I find social media is like a blessing and a curse kind of a way. There's
Yeah,
so much
100%.
great that comes. There's so much great that does come from uh, there is so much great that comes from social media. Like, you see, definitely, as I'm about to say it 100 times. So since leaving secondary, and that, you see people really starting to do what they kind of want to do, and start like even getting sponsorships to do, to promote brands and stuff. You're like, that's fucking, that's deadly. Like,
Mm,
you couldn't have done that, last year. But it's definitely happening now, and I do see a huge change, and I think that's the good part of social media. Obviously, there's a huge down, like, there's a lot of negative things that come from it as well, but that's for another podcast, I suppose.
yeah, no,
But
there's a lot of negatives
that's
that come to it,
that's
but that is
that,
for another podcast.
I feel so a social media episode would be fantastic. I think we could
Yeah,
speak a lot on that, because it's such a complex thing. But coming back to
yeah.
the mindset of Irish people as they leave secondary and going into that college or whatever, even if it's an apprenticeship or whatever, you start thinking outside the box, because you're not around the same people every day, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of encouraging the same kind of things. You're starting to branch out, you're listening to more people, you're starting to think about what you want to do. And because you might be even in a course and you're like, what, I don't even fucking enjoy this, but I'm just doing it because other people are saying it's decent, that. But you know that's even a good thing in itself, because it's teaching you that you know what you want to do. Then it's see, that's the best thing about leaving secondary. I think colleges are really a good thing that way. You kind of learn a lot more about yourself, especially.
Hmm. No, yeah, like I agree with you, but I think it needs to be that kind of a change needs to be a lot sooner.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think once you get to that level, there might have already been a load of people that are stuck now, and they're just not gonna make that jump because like they feel that for 6 years they haven't. So why would they all of a sudden decide to change their mentality and start kind of trying new things or whatever? Um, I think you lose. Yes, we are seeing more people as you get to college, they're being more themselves and more different. I think you're still not seeing as much as you should be or could be if that change and that kind of a switch happened a lot earlier, or even if
yeah,
there wasn't a switch in the first place, to be honest.
yeah.
um
No, I understand, but see, as a 13, 14-year-old, you don't, I don't know, do you, like, for me anyway, I didn't really know, what I what I was, you know what I mean? I didn't really, I think I
yeah, it's a
needed those
process, like.
years of being fucking, of being like, no, I don't like that, but I'm going to carry on. I like that, but I dropped it or whatever. But you need those kind of years to really find, not like find yourself, but to discover like
Understand really like what
yourself.
you
Yeah, yeah,
like, and yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think by going through following the crowds and that, it makes you under, like, it's like with a business and it fails, like you might go through the secondary and be like in that group that you don't, you, you're not being yourself in that, but you might need that to push you on to doing the things you want to do, like, like
Mm.
whatever that is, whether that's starting a business or going into a course that you want to do or whatever, it's
Yeah, no, 100%. There's a process, like it's not a straight line kind of a
you just
thing.
think it should happen sooner, is what you're saying.
I just don't think there should be as much of a, like, it's like cold turkey in secondary school, and then everyone, then it's like there's like they're released into the wild then in college. And I just don't think it should be as like extreme as that. Like, um it should be like, yes, there is going to be phases where there's always going to be phases where people feel they need to follow a crowd or follow a trend or follow whatever. But I just think there should always be an acceptance for people doing their own thing or being a bit different or whatever. And I don't think then that leads, like, I don't think that would result then in college just being an absolute, like, mess where every single person is just like flying off the handle because they get to be themselves now, and they don't need to like, they need to confine themselves and they can try all these new different things because I'm in college now. And like, yeah, college is great that it does that, but I'm like, does it really need to be, um does it need to be like that? Could college be a bit more where it's like you already have a little bit of an understanding of yourself because you've tried new things in fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, and been more of an acceptance um, the previous years, instead of like you going up feeling you're kind of trapped, and then boom, you're gone from secondary school. It's finally over and you can try all these things, you know what I mean?
But that, I'm just like, you're saying that, but that's kind of more my experience of it. I've It's not that I felt trapped. It's just that I didn't want to do anything outside of my own comfort zone, and I think it's about
But do you
breaking
think that's
kind of
good,
what.
that you were afraid to not be in your own
No,
comfort
it's
zone?
obviously not. But that might be the same case for every child. I feel you're using
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that like myself as an example of that. But I think it's it's a lot more just kind of getting comfortable with not being in your comfort zone. It's like, if that makes sense,
Get
trying not.
comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Exactly, yeah, trying you know get into that kind of zone a bit more. That's exactly what I
But
feel I'm
that's
doing
why
here.
I think that stems back then to the education system,
The educate, yeah, yeah,
because I
it's
think the education system is like pure order, like, and everyone being the same. So you get comfortable in that comfort zone of following the crowd or whatever, and you're just doing what everyone else is doing, which is understandable considering what the actual system is, where everyone's wearing uniforms and everyone
Yeah.
needs to be like this and everyone's doing these subjects and everyone's going to learn like this. And um, I think when if an education system was a lot more um, college like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
then you'd have that transition way sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Or there
I
wouldn't even
think,
be a transition. There'd just be your own personal transition that might be completely different to everyone else, but there isn't just this point where every single person or the majority of people decide to find themselves or like discover themselves and try new things. It would just be on their own personal level.
yeah, that's a very good point there about kind of being more similar to college in secondary. I like,
Yeah.
as in with the idea of, the no uniforms, the more kind of extracurricular activities, and
But that's what
it's,
I found Canada had. And that's
yeah,
why I think it's a bit different
exactly, yeah. Because I
in
just
that.
remember, yeah, in the last
Yeah.
episode, like you were sorry for cutting you off there,
No,
but
you're right.
in the last episode you were saying like you were doing more specific subjects, like you were saying there was like,
Yeah,
um
anthropology and
anthropology,
American
yes, I was
history
just trying to
and
think of one of them.
no, and
Yeah,
photography and like all of these. Yeah.
and to have that in the kind of earlier cycle is probably more beneficial, because
Yeah.
as you see, you felt like you felt like what Canada's secondary was, as I feel colleges for me,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And I
yeah,
think that's not based around um, that's not even just limiting it to subjects. It's the culture. I viewed teachers as like almost they're like on my side. Like they're someone I could have a chat to and have a joke around and
yeah,
they're looking out for me and I'm not just a number or I'm not
yeah,
just one individual in a system and they're not on this hierarchy of I'm a
yeah.
teacher. It
So
was
it's kind of,
very chilled and relaxed. It was casual. It was like you'd call into his class. Um, like I remember I had one teacher and on a lunchtime you could just he'd be chilling there watching TV or whatever in his classroom and you'd call in and have a chat with him and just sit down and have lunch or whatever and talk about sports or what have you and have a laugh and a joke and that was it like or I don't know, it was just a lot more casual. Like there was a library um and the library, you could literally now, if I was in class, I could say, Miss, can I throw my headphones on and into the library and I'll go and I'll get this done. I'll email it to you. Boom, I'm off, laptop open, bang, done, send it to her.
yeah.
And it's like there's just a lot more of relaxed environment.
Yeah, 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 yeah. See, that worked well for you, but maybe it might work out well for a lot of shoots. But like
But there was
I
the
think,
option. There was the option. You could be in
yeah,
a class
exactly.
and this if you wanted to be more regimented and more planned out, you could sit there, you could do whatever you needed to do and whatever. And there's a teacher there to kind of keep it in check. But if you wanted a little bit more of a different kind of an environment, more relaxed, casual, that was there for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you gotta, from hearing that now, it seems like you got like a lot more sense of like security from and trust from the teachers. You know what I mean? They kind of had a bit more
100%.
faith in you as well. It sounds fucking class, to be fair.
Yeah,
but
like yeah.
that's what kind of college is like now. Like, you could, if you wanted to, you could email a teacher there and actually speak to them about either that subject, or you might have something in common with them. You could chat away to them, but like it's very similar. And
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. I feel they should bring a lot more of the college feel to secondary school. Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, and I think clothes as well is a huge thing. I know like people might think that's not much or it's not a big issue, but I think like when everyone's wearing a uniform, there's a 100% you're not going to be like trying anything different or like with your clothes, or like you know what I mean? Like you're forced into when you're 5 days of the week, you're wearing the same clothes as everyone else. Why would you change for those 2 days where you're just going to be completely different and not follow what everyone else is. You're going to get stuck in this where like, oh, everyone else is kind of wearing those. I wear a
Yeah,
uniform
yeah,
5 days
yeah,
a week.
absolutely.
Whereas in Canada and like America now, and even like nearly half the world don't have uniforms. Um, like you can wear whatever you want to wear, and like you can establish that from day one that like I'm gonna wear a United jersey and you might be a rugby player and who cares? Or I'm gonna wear Reeboks and you can wear your Nikes and like no one cares. Like, do you remember when those Nikes were like popping here?
The
Those
rashes.
yeah. Like, oh my God. Like, are you having a laugh? I'm so proud I never got a pair. Did you get a pair?
I didn't get a pair of rashes, but I did get a super
Hey.
dry jacket. I did
Oh
get the
my
super dry
gosh.
jacket. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
Uh,
I like obviously trends are inevitable, but I'm saying like, people are more inclined to just wear whatever they want to wear, and there's not this like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
guide.
yeah. No, I think that's a very valid point, and I think it's a nice one to end this on. I felt like that was fucking spot on, to be honest. I feel we even answered a lot of our own questions from the start of the podcast till now.
Mm,
You uh, thinking there now, like just about you know some of the points we were on about earlier, like we were questioning things, but I think we could see a lot of the issues behind the questions we were asking and stuff. But yeah, that was I think that was a very very good podcast. I feel we should try and maybe get someone on by the end of the week, maybe try and get another one out by the weekend or something.
yeah, I'd have to take out the notebook
Have
there
to
and see
check
all
our
the 200.
sources.
Yeah, check all the 200 odd people that are looking to come on.
Yeah, so
Um,
we'll try and get another one out by the end of the week, and yeah, sounds good.
yeah, by
So
the weekend, I'd say.
yeah,
Um,
sweet. All right.
yeah, so thanks for everyone who got this far.
Yeah, if any.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later.